morning and welcome to Fox 29's News Now on this Wednesday morning. We're going to get started with some breaking news for you overnight. Philadelphia's top cop is out. Police Commissioner Richard Ross abruptly resigned yesterday evening. The shocking announcement comes after two female officers filed a federal lawsuit saying they were sexually harassed and discriminated on the job. Fox 29's Lauren Johnson filed this report.
Yeah, good morning to you. The mayor thanked Richard Ross for his commitment to the city and his service to the department, but he says the commissioner didn't move fast enough on certain initiatives when it came to harassment and discrimination. Initiatives, he says, they put in place last year to address. And now in a federal lawsuit, we might have a better idea of why. Two female officers filed the civil rights suit last month and amended it on Monday. One of those officers, Audra McCowan, claims to have had an affair with Ross back in 2009 for 2 years. In the complaint, she said cutting it off was the reason why Ross dragged his feet on her claims of harassment. Ross, the department, and several other former and current employees are named in that federal lawsuit. And the mayor made it a point to say Ross is not named for any allegations directly, but it was enough for the top cop to offer his resignation and rock the entire community with the news.
I don't have anything against him as a police commissioner. I mean, I don't know everything about him and all the things he was involved in, but to me, he seemed like he was doing a pretty good job for a while.
Maybe he tried to do his best. You know, I really don't know. I really don't know the ins and outs, of the situation.
That resignation comes less than a week after Commissioner Ross personally negotiated with the man who shot 6 Philadelphia police officers from inside a Philadelphia row home last Wednesday. The man ultimately surrendered, and the mayor and many others praised Ross after he had a personal phone call with that suspect. Richard Ross has served in every rank in the department dating back to 1989. In 2006, he was appointed commissioner, and now his acting replacement has already been named. Christine Coulter will take over his duties as assigned until a permanent replacement is announced.
So who is replacing Ross? Mayor Kenney announced Christine Coulter is acting commissioner. She is the first woman to hold
Everybody won here, most especially the patients. It was a friendly competition. There was every effort to get our folks to the fire side and then from the police side to get people involved in this. Everybody won here, most especially the patients. It was a friendly competition. There was every effort to get our folks to the fire.
And if you want to learn more about the interim commissioner or read the documents in that federal lawsuit, we posted the information on our website, fox29.com. And of course, we'll have more coverage throughout the morning as the story unfolds. And developing this morning out of Delaware County, a young person has died after drowning at the Fulcroft Swim Club. Investigators believe a night of fun came to a tragic end. Fox 29's Bill Anderson has the latest.
Yeah, guys, and all morning we've just been saying that this is sad and it's a little bit scary. We often hear don't go pool hopping, but unfortunately a lot of times young people view that as relatively minor. This situation at the Fulcroft Swim Club is a reminder of how severe the consequences can be. And what we know is that right around 1 a.m., police and rescue received a 911 call of people that were here in the pool at the Fulcroft Swim Club in Delaware County. That was all they knew. But when they got here, they found out that there was a very serious situation. The Chief William Baer, he told us that unfortunately when police arrived, there just wasn't much left that they could do.
When they arrived, all the lights were out, and they went and got inside to the pool because the gates were locked. And they finally got in, and when they went and looked around the pool, they found a person in the deep end. One of our witnesses was in the pool and basically called 911 and basically told us that one of his friends is in the pool. I think they were just pool hopping, and it was a tragic accident this time.
Now, police were here early this morning, but it was a relatively quick investigation. They do have the witnesses who we're guessing told them exactly what happened. They so far have not released the name of the victim, but as the chief said, it just seems like a really tragic accident from young people who just thought they were pool hopping.
And more in local news this morning. In Cumberland County, the Coast Guard will continue searching for a missing kayaker. Sky Fox over the Morris River near the East Point Lighthouse. County officials say the man, who is yet to be identified, was last seen around 5 p.m. Monday and was reported missing after midnight. Yesterday, New Jersey State Police found a yellow kayak matching the description of the missing kayaker. And Philadelphia police are still searching for a young woman accused of killing another woman and injuring a second woman during a stabbing. A makeshift memorial was set up yesterday where the stabbing occurred near 29th and Jefferson Streets in Brewery Town Monday night. Police say the three women began fighting on social media and they eventually met face to face. That's when one of them, a 19-year-old, is accused of stabbing the other two. A 23-year-old woman was killed and a 28-year-old woman was injured.
A second victim, a 23-year-old female, was laying on the highway. Police picked her up, rushed her to Jefferson Hospital. That 23-year-old was stabbed multiple times throughout her body. She was stabbed at least one time in her chest, and she was pronounced dead at 12:05 a.m. And that stabbing victim who died is 23 years of age. Some preliminary information that this was a fight that started over social media, but we don't have the specifics at this time. The scene just consists of some blood and what appears to be a wig at the intersection of 29th and Jefferson Streets.
Several witnesses tell police the 19-year-old is from that neighborhood. So far, she remains on the run. And in Bucks County, one person is in police custody after an apartment fire displaced 5 families. We showed you the fire yesterday on Good Day at the Croftwood Apartments in Feasterville. Firefighters say a man was trying to light incense, but it somehow got out of control. Instead of calling 911, investigators say he ran off. No charges have been filed at this time. Now to Berks County, where a man wearing a face mask and hard hat robbed a bank. Police are still looking for him. Investigators say just after 1 yesterday afternoon, the man walked into the BB&T Bank on Main Street in Oley Township, handed the teller a note, and demanded money. It's not clear how much money he got away with, and he did not appear to have a weapon. An award is being offered for any tips leading to his arrest. And in Camden County, one man is in custody and police are searching for 2 others who are accused of driving around in this car shooting people with paintballs. Police say the vehicle is registered to the stepmother of the 18-year-old Christopher Worley. He is now in custody after admitting he was driving the car but refused to name the others involved in the series of random paintball attacks.
Yeah, so as you can see there, for the most part, I mean, you see this dog here is not agitated at all.
Yeah, not phased. So what are you looking at, man?
More in local news this morning. Nearly 300 union workers have been laid off at the South Philadelphia refinery where a massive fire broke out in June. The president of Steelworkers Local 10-1, Ryan O'Callahan, says 280 workers were let go. He claims there's still some product on some of the lines, so he says the refinery still needs staff. We reached out to Philadelphia Energy Solutions for comment, but have yet to hear back. The advisory group for Philadelphia Energy Solutions will hold another public meeting this evening at 5:30 at Preparatory Charter School on Point Breeze Avenue. Fox 29 Weather Authority. The Philadelphia area is slated for yet another hot and humid day this Wednesday with some afternoon thunderstorms, not unlike these last 2 days. A heat advisory is still in effect through 8 p.m. tonight. Temperatures will reach a high of around 92 degrees, but with humidity, the heat index will be closer to 100 degrees. Partly to mostly cloudy skies are expected ahead of those afternoon storms, a few of which may be severe. But don't you worry, relief from high temperatures is expected this weekend finally, with those temps hovering around a temperate 80 degrees. Here we have a look at current temperatures in our area. An enviable 69 degrees up at the Poconos, already close to 80 degrees over in Lancaster, just over the 80 degree mark right here in Philadelphia, and 83 degrees all around down the Jersey Shore, Toms River, Atlantic City, and Wildwood. Looking ahead to our 7-day forecast, again another hot and humid day as we continue with this fifth heat wave of the summer season. The same weather pattern should carry over into Thursday, but by this weekend we're looking at nice, pleasant 80 degree mix of sun and clouds weather, which will hopefully continue into Monday and Tuesday as the Phillies return home. Weather Authority app. And in political news this morning, the Trump administration is moving to end a long-standing federal court agreement that limits how long migrant children can be kept in detention, a decision that will almost certainly lead to a new court fight over the government's ability to hold migrant families until their cases are decided. Here's a look at what DHS officials had to say at a press conference this morning.
Sir. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today to discuss important action the administration is taking to address the ongoing security and humanitarian crisis at our southwest border, publishing a final rule to implement the Flores Settlement Agreement. This year, we have seen an unprecedented flow of family units, primarily from Central America, coming to our southwest border. During the first 10 months of this fiscal year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection apprehended or encountered almost 475,000 families, 90% of whom crossed our border unlawfully between ports of entry, 3 times more than any previous full-year record. In the month of May alone, we saw 88,630 members of family units arrive at our border, 4 times the record month in the last major surge. As I have testified multiple times and as experts throughout this administration, as well as leaders from previous administrations have explained, the driving factor for this crisis is weakness in our legal framework for immigration. Human smugglers advertise, and intending migrants know well, that even if they cross the border illegally, arriving at our border with a child has meant that they will be released into the United States to wait for court proceedings that could take 5 years or more. This key gap in our immigration framework comes from a 2015 reinterpretation of the Flores Settlement Agreement, an agreement that is now more than 2 decades old, by a federal district court judge. This reinterpretation, which applied for the first time the requirements of the Flores Settlement to accompanied minors, has generally forced the government to release families into the country after just 20 days, and incentivizing illegal entry, adding to the growing backlog in immigration proceedings, and often delaying immigration proceedings for many years. This single ruling has substantially caused and continued to fuel the current family unit crisis and the unprecedented flow of Central American families and minors illegally crossing our border until today. After nearly 2 years of work by the Department of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services professionals, consideration of over 100,000 comments from stakeholders and members of the public, and a comprehensive review, the Trump administration has established a new rule to respond to the realities of current immigration flows, a rule based in the principle that families should remain together during immigration proceedings. While the Flores Settlement Agreement is operationally outdated and does not respond to the current immigration crisis, it has many important aspects and principles, like the need for special protections for children and high standards for government facilities, that were adopted as defining features in this new rule. This is an extensive and detailed rule, but this morning I want to highlight 4 key elements. First and foremost, the new rule permanently establishes standards of care in custody for children and families. These standards are high. In doing so, the rule fulfills one of the central, original purposes of the 1997 Flores Court Settlement Agreement to ensure appropriate care for all children. A national standard of care ensures that care in custody of children and families is not a policy decision and should not be subject to the ebbs and flows of state and local politics. Instead, all children in the government's care will be universally treated with dignity, respect, and special concern in concert with American values and faithful to the intent of the original settlement. The facilities that we will be using to temporarily house families under this rule are appropriately fundamentally different than the facilities where migrants are processed following apprehension or encounter at the border. They are campus-like settings with appropriate medical, educational, recreational, dining, and private housing facilities. For example, the First Family Residential Center in Berks, Pennsylvania has suites where each family is housed separately. Furniture, bedding, towels, clothing, and toiletries are provided. There's a large community living room that has big screen television, cushioned couches and lounge chairs, a gaming area, and a separate library that contains books, other television sets, video games, and board games. The facility also has an entire wing dedicated to classroom learning where minors at the facility go to school 5 days a week. Another wing is a medical facility where minors and their parents receive any necessary medical care, including all immunizations required for later admission to U.S. public schools. There are also phone banks to call relatives, consulates, attorneys, or other representatives. In all family residential centers, 3 hot meals a day are provided, and snacks are available throughout the day. All of our 3 family residential centers offer a variety of indoor and outdoor daily recreation activities. For children and adults, indoor activities offered include a variety of sports, group exercise classes, arts and crafts classes, movie nights, and even seasonal holiday-themed activities. Outdoor recreational facilities include soccer fields, volleyball courts, and play structures. The FRCs have video conferencing set up for court hearings and private meeting rooms so that families can meet with their attorneys or representatives. Child care is provided to the parents while they meet with their attorneys or representatives or attend these hearings. Interpreting services are available 24 hours a day via telephone. Attorneys and representatives approved to appear at immigration court hearings are provided access to the residence at various times each week, enabling families to obtain counsel and not have to appear at immigration hearings as pro se respondents. The new rule will ensure that children and families in the care of the government are temporarily housed in facilities that are appropriate for their well-being. Second, the new rule closes the legal loophole that arose from the reinterpretation of Flores, which Congress has refused to do, allowing the federal government to house alien families together in appropriate facilities during fair and expeditious proceedings, as was done by the previous administration in 2014 and 2015. Prior to the 2015 court ruling that restricted our use of the FRCs, immigration proceedings averaged less than 50 days, granting those with meritorious claims prompt relief and permission to stay in the U.S. with appropriate documentation, while swiftly repatriating those with meritless claims who have comprised a substantial majority of the families arriving and being processed. Our goal remains, as in the previous administration, to provide an expeditious immigration result while holding families together, which particularly benefits legitimate asylum seekers with meritorious claims. The current system, however, serves those with meritless claims and leaves all migrants in a state of limbo for years. In recent months, the majority of final orders of removal for families who recently arrived at our border have been issued in absentia, over 85%. This rule changes that dynamic. The result of holding families together under the previous administration was a dramatic reduction in the flow of unlawful crossings by families. The 2015 court ruling upended that process, and the direct and predictable result has been 2 family surge crises at the border, first in 2016 and now at unprecedented levels this year. When fully implemented, the new rule will restore the humane and effective procedures employed in 2014 and 2015. Third, by closing this key loophole in Flores, the new rule will restore integrity to our immigration system and eliminate the major pull factor fueling the crisis. As I stated earlier, this year has brought record volumes of family units to our southwest border. In the first 10 months of the fiscal year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has observed a 469% increase in the number of family units apprehended between ports of entry from our FY18 numbers. While this year's increase is especially dramatic, family apprehensions have increased at an annual average of 72% over the past fiscal years. In fiscal year 2013, before Flores was reinterpreted, the total number of family units apprehended entering the United States illegally on the southern border was 14,855. Again, by August of this fiscal year, we have already seen almost 475,000 family units apprehended. By eliminating the incentive to make the journey to the United States as a family, the new rule will reduce the unprecedented volume of family units that has strained the already limited resources of our department components and put children throughout the region at risk. The scale of this crisis has required us to ask a tremendous amount of our Border Patrol agents and CBP officers as they have stepped up. This new rule will provide them with well-deserved relief and allow them to rededicate their resources and time towards stopping criminals at the border, the job they signed up to do. And fourth, the new rule will protect children by reducing incentives for adults, including human smugglers, to exploit minors in the dangerous journey to our border, using them to beat the system and be released into the United States. So far this fiscal year, Border Patrol agents have identified approximately 6,000 migrants who have fraudulently presented as members of family units at the border. In response, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Homeland Security Investigations has conducted 2 DNA pilot testing programs that have definitively identified dozens of cases in which children had no familiar relation to the adults claiming that. In the first operation, Operation Double Helix 1, 16 out of 84 family units were identified as fraudulent based on negative DNA results. In the second version of the operation, 79 of our 522 family units tested have been identified as fraudulent based on negative DNA results to date. These egregious examples of migrants posing as family units that ICE has uncovered demonstrates the necessity of this new rule. No child should be a pawn in a scheme to manipulate our immigration system, which is why the new rule eliminates the incentive to exploit children as a free ticket, or as one gentleman in Guatemala told me, a passport for migration to the United States. This action by the administration is just one part of our overall effort, but it's an essential one that will do a great deal to address the crisis we are facing. To emphasize again, at the heart of this new rule are 2 core principles: that families should remain together during immigration proceedings, and that conditions for care of children must be appropriate. The new rule establishes a high national standard for care of children and families in custody, allows the government to keep families together for fair and expeditious immigration proceedings, restores integrity to our immigration system, and eliminates the incentive for children to be used or exploited to enter the United States. The border security and migration challenges we face require a whole-of-government approach, and we look forward to working together, including with our international partners, to continue to address them. Thank you. I look forward to taking your questions. Good morning.
Based on this new regulation, how long do you expect families to remain in detention together? How long do you estimate the court proceedings will take?
Well, again, we've done this before as the Department of Homeland Security in 2014 and 2015 under then Secretary Jay Johnson. family residential centers were established and these proceedings were implemented. During that time period, the average stay was under 50 days for completion of immigration proceeding.
CBP has released over 130,000 family units since March, as you all have said, because your systems are overwhelmed. Are you prepared to detain all of these family units starting tomorrow, or will more bed space have to be created?
Yeah, we're not going to be detaining every family unit that arrives starting tomorrow. What Flores, the regulation implementation does, and again, it's not going to be effective for 60 days from publishing in the Federal Register, which is Friday. But it allows us to keep families together through their immigration proceedings. We have 3 family residential centers, about 3,000 total family beds in those centers. But that's going to allow us to bring families in, finish immigration proceedings as one of a multi-layered strategy. We're also working with Central America. We're working with Mexico to address immigration flows. We have the migrant protection protocols, which can be used to have families waiting in Mexico during their immigration proceedings as well. So what this will do is substantially increase our ability to end the catch and release challenges that have fueled this crisis for families.
You said that eliminating the incentive for families to make the journey to the U.S. is obviously one of the primary goals here. But is it possible that families considering coming here will not really listen